The mite load being low is a trigger that you should use that as an opportunity to assay or investigate further with some sort of a test and determine if that's stock you can use in the next season.
Crikey, look what we have here. It is the mosquito bee yard native frog. This frog emits lasers from its eyeballs. If you get too close, zap! Melted brains all over the floor. Don't touch, just look and admire nature's craft. What handiwork we have here. Wow, what a beautiful frog. I can't believe she's let me get so close. Still no lasers in my eyeballs? We must have a connection now. Most people don't have. I am getting annihilated by mosquitoes for this shot. It's painful.
Okay. These are the sisters I was referring to regarding the nucleus stacks. Move 10 of them over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I guess I moved 9 over here. Yeah, there's 9 over here. This one, however, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This one right here is so hygienic. They just are uncapping every single cell and not able to really keep up. And so I'd mentioned that in a previous video, how adding a frame of brood might be necessary in order to help the colony maintain its ability to stay strong enough to exist. But the problem that you're going to run into is that particular colony isn't really going to be one that's productive or efficient or possibly even capable of wintering on its own without help. And I don't really want to be raising bees that require a lot of propping or assistance. So in this regard, the colony will probably be culled, or the queen will be added to a weaker colony that has enough brood for it to maybe transition through the winter. We'll see what happens as I go through these colonies here in this yard. But again, the drones and daughters from that colony would wash out and contribute those high efficacious, high hygienic genetics to other queens that mate with those drones. So it's a bit of a wash. You may lose one colony, but you gain 20 other queens that have some of those genetics. And as opposed to washing out more toward less mite resistance, it's washing out with mite resistance but less hygienic behavior, to the point of where the colony is handicapped by the excessive nature of the uncap, recap, or hygienic behavior. So it's all trade-offs. So this colony, these are, again, they were moved to a different yard. They were all queens made at the same time as the nukes that we just went through, the nuke stacks. But there's plenty of bees in here. So I'm going to pull a couple of these frames and take a look at, see how the food stores and brood stores are. And if all of this is looking like mostly brood, each one of these boxes are going to get another empty 5-frame box. And I'm going to give them stores from these 2 colonies in the yard. And it looks to be, if everything goes well, that I have 48 frames of capped honey. And I have 9 boxes that require 5 frames each. Well, 8. So I only need 40 of those frames, and I won't have to deal with any honey in this yard, which will be beautiful. So let's take a quick gander. I'm not going to dig too far for the queen in this colony, but I am going to look for eggs in brood. And if I see eggs in brood, I'm going to be satisfied. And then I'll follow the same protocol with a lot of the other colonies here, because it's starting to get dark. Looking good. And so it's exactly as I suspected. They are capping honey on the outside frame, and these middle frames are definitely full of brood. And these nukes that I send in the winter like this off of breeder stock, I prefer to test them by not treating them and letting them winter. And since these are all off of breeders, these colonies will go into the breeding program as opposed to getting sold off. I may select a few of them for sale, but I do have young larvae and day-old eggs. Would be good to do some pin testing maybe on this colony. But I'm not going to do all that. $7.40, just finishing up. Opened up these bins with cappings from honey extraction, and they are just all over it. So far, I was able to add quite a bit of honey to these 3 medium frame stacks, but they are so dirty and robby, it's been challenging. Mite count on this colony was 4, and that queen was open mated requeen. The colony made itself back in May, and the queen mother was a Harbo 4, and the current mite count right now on August 24th is 4 mites. And this colony here also, and if you could tell from the previous video, I've taken the honey supers off and distributed the honey to the nucleus colonies here. This one also washed 4 mites, maybe 3. One of them was an orangish mite, but it's still 4 varroa in the sample. And then I rewashed the samples again, and they were 0. This colony is full of bees, but light on stores, which is concerning because in order for them to have adequate food, I had to leave that top super there. So they're definitely hungry right now. But these colonies all look pretty good. I did have to do a combine on that colony that was super hygienic because the one next to it was also super hygienic. So I just combined them together, took one of the queens out, and we will put her somewhere where she could be useful. But I'm done with this yard. I gotta go take care of some chores and clean everything up. Probably will have to come back and check on the stores for one of these colonies. It might need to be fed because I ran out of honey from the ones that I thought would have enough to donate. I do have other colonies that have honey supers on them that I could grab some frames out of, which would be the best case scenario, and I'll probably do that. It'll save me time and resources. I'll just have to brush the bees off of the frames that I gave these last 2 here on the end that I didn't have enough honey, capped honey frames from the donor colonies to give. Okay, as I wind down and clean up the yard, some thoughts about negative versus positive selection when it comes to selective breeding. Large scale, medium scale, small scale, any scale really, there is always a degree of negative or positive selection occurring. And when you treat colonies, that is in and of a sense a negative selection, but only if you remove the queen from the gene pool. And one approach to removing the queen from the gene pool would be to allow that colony to just perish. So in a sense, don't treat them. The middle road would say that you can treat the colony and then requeen in the spring or requeen with a nuke instead of having to use the chemicals. And that would possibly preserve pressure that's necessary for the act of natural selection to be carried out, even though there's some interference from the beekeeper, which would be known as artificial selection. Because even though you're maybe just letting your colony die, the beekeeper is still engaged with the colony as a whole, or all colonies, affecting the selective process. Where otherwise, nature, if you just leave them be, the bees are going to carry on and they're going to do what they do. But we come in and we manage the cavity size, we manage the queens, and we bring in genetics, or we take honey, that sort of thing. So those definitely play a factor in the whole process. But if you're engaging in selective breeding and you go the full negative road and you treat everybody, and I say this often, it's very difficult to ascertain just what stock you should be selecting from in any kind of scenario. So it's important that you have some candidates to select from. And in this yard, if two of the boxes that are here are full-size colonies, have had queens since May, were not previously treated the season before, and they still have had an opportunity to carry a mite load. They've only had the one, queen removed in the spring, one nuke taken out of each colony and then ran for honey, and they're still full-size colonies and it's the same queen. The mite load being low is a trigger that you should use that as an opportunity to assay or investigate further with some sort of a test and determine if that's stock you can use in the next season. And that's sufficient pressure to determine whether or not you should graft or add those to your apiary. And you're constantly selecting, you're constantly moving the needle forward, and maybe at one point you reach this level of homeostasis where every queen is great, and they're all mite resistant. But that's not going to happen overnight. That's not going to happen within a single season. It's going to take time. But if you don't select any bees and you're not engaging the selection process at all, you're just kind of stuck in the same rotation or chasing your tail, or choose your analogy wisely here. You can be stuck on the chemical treadmill. You can be stuck on the perils of natural selection because nature keeps selecting against you, and you lose more hives than you can bear, and you can't make profit to continue the selection process. Everybody's circumstances are going to be very different. So that's just my 2 cents. I'm grateful that some of the colonies only require some treatment and some of the colonies require no treatment, and that I have plenty of colonies that are candidates for harvest assays, and we can determine what they will look like for the next season, and then keep that rotation going where there's always a constant supply of candidates to continue the evaluation process and refine further for grafting and drone mothers in the mating yards. Okay.